Hello, boils and ghouls. Now, I don't know. I just figured I had fun doing that last video, and just keeping myself distracted is helping. So, VHS 94. Now, I've done videos on the first two VHSs, 99 and 85. So the only two I had left was Viral and this one, which, a quick rundown of how I feel about these movies. I really like the first two. There's a lot of segments that are hit or miss throughout this whole series for me. Viral, I don't remember at all. Like, I fell asleep the last time I tried to rewatch it. I couldn't deal with the characters. I mean, that's a running theme in this series. It's just arrogant, disgusting human beings as the characters in a lot of these segments. So it's a very hit or miss series for me. I am a found footage fan. I am an anthology fan. So the idea when this first started with the original VHS of having an anthology of found footage segments was very intriguing. 99, I actually really enjoyed most of the segments. And 85, I was very disappointed with. Like, super disappointed with. I don't really even remember any of the segments from that one. That's just how forgettable they all were. Now, this one, I don't remember a lot of the segments, but it has one of my favorite segments in this whole series, and that's the opening segment with Ratman. What a great segment that is. We'll talk about it. So let's dive into VHS 94. So I can finally, I guess, get to Viral after this and be done with that movie, and I never have to watch Viral again. Now this, like all the VHS movies, has David Bruckner and Brad Miska involved producing. I think Bruckner does the wraparound for this. I completely forgot. The wraparound in this is like the cult, right? Like with the SWAT team. It's very forgettable. The whole wraparound in this one, I really don't care for. The wraparounds in the whole series, basically, there's not one that I really, really enjoy. So, the wraparounds don't really do anything for me. So yeah, I don't like this at all. This whole opening, for the wraparound. The SWAT team, they're going to what they think is a drug bust. And they break into this warehouse, search warrants, SWAT team everywhere, and we see all these people that are dead, and they're looking for this drug. They end up finding it, and then they end up finding more dead cultists, because this turned out being some cult. I forget what their motives are. I really haven't seen this movie in a while, except for the Ratman segment. I throw this on every now and then just to watch that, so we can finally stop talking about that shitty opening and talk about the best part of this movie, which officially the name of this is Storm Drain. One thing with this movie that 99 I think did a little better, from what I can remember with this, because right from the opening here, with the beginning of the first segment, with the newscaster talking about the internet, and what it is, and millions of people are going to have it, they really try to push the 90s feeling. Like, I get that they have to, because it's set in the 90s, but sometimes it just feels really forced and just on the nose. They did a lot better in 99 with that, but it was still a minor nitpick I had with 99 also. Also, David Bruckner did not do the wraparound. I already forgot her name. I need to get a fucking haircut. Anyway, so I've said a few times in videos concerning this subject, I love cryptids. I love aliens, conspiracy theories. Some of you that have been around a while remember my long-ass multi-episode Mothman documentary that I did last year. So anything that has to do with that instantly has my attention. And this segment, the way it opens, I love the interviews that the newscaster, Holly Marciano, I think her last name is, that she's going around getting all interviews from people about this supposed Ratman, or Raatma, as they call it in the cult that worships it. Every time I watch this, though, I can't help but think of Grand Theft Auto 4, and the myth that was going on for years, that there was a Ratman in that game, in the sewers, and people were looking all over, just like in San Andreas when that came out, with Bigfoot, and the pig man, like, they looked like Leatherface with the chainsaw. all those myths that people were looking in the games for years afterwards for. So every time I watch this, that's one thing I always think of, is Grand Theft Auto 4. But all the interviews are cool, and they're giving their theories, all these people, on what they think the Ratman is. And these two kids are hanging out, and they think it's some escaped mental patient. He mentions the hospital, and she says that's where, like, her cousin or her sister or something like that went. And he says, yeah, that's where her crazy-ass sister went. Oh, that's fun. And I think it's a great setup having, the priest be interviewed here, and him saying he thinks it's a sign from Jesus and that it's time for sinners and everybody to, be judged. And then he ends up being, like the highest up worshiper of Raatma by the end of the segment. So they end up going into the storm drain where this Ratman is supposed to live, because they hear somebody when she's wrapping up her whole report on the Ratman. And they end up meeting this homeless person that I wouldn't go near with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't go anywhere near this person. But they just walk right up to him, and it's not because he's homeless, it's because he looks fucking deranged. This guy does not look like a normal human being. This guy looks like a fucking mutant creature. And she thinks she can have a story here of the homeless people that are living in the tunnels, which they mention at the very beginning. Then she gets the shit scared out of her when this homeless mutant that she's talking to spits up, it looks like blood, like out of his mouth, and he says, Raatma. I also like this segment because it's very claustrophobic feeling. Like, all the setting here in the tunnels, it really makes you feel like you're stuck in there with them. And then Holly goes missing, and the camera guy ends up hearing her screams and a creature screaming, and then he ends up getting knocked out. And they wake up, and turns out all the homeless people down there, as well as the priest that they interviewed earlier, all worship this creature, and that it actually does exist. And it looks awesome. The design of this creature is really fucking good in this movie. And the sound that it makes, the sound design's great. The, like, snarls it makes, the way that it drips the acid, like, from its mouth, and it ends up, like, going all over Jeff, as the camera guy. His face kills him. So this cult is basically worshipping Raatma as their new god, and Raatma, the Ratman, gets to decide who gets to live and serve him and who's not worthy. So they end up letting Holly go. Jeff is never found. And I like the ending to this too. The first time I saw this, I had no idea what the hell was going on for a second, because now she's back on the news channel as a co-host, and her co-host is welcoming her back and saying, we're so happy, that you're all right. And then she starts, giving the news. And she starts saying Raatma, like, every few words. And it was tripping me out the first time I ever saw this. So, what, am I hearing this right? And then I realized what's going on. And then she ends up spitting the acid shit all over her co-host. And the effects look great. Again, just like the creature effects for the Ratman, with his face melting off and everyone screaming. And she says, Hail Raatma. And a segment to one of the best segments in this whole series. And then, unfortunately, we go back to the wraparound, but luckily it's quick. They're walking around in this warehouse, still haven't seen anybody alive. And then they happen upon this screen. And, like, this place looks all decked out like a cult place, like it actually is. And then it starts playing the second segment, which I remember this vaguely. This is the one with the coffin, with the girl who's in the funeral home and she's freaking out the whole time that the person in there is alive, and then he comes alive. I don't care for this one that much. I mean, I'll see if it changes here, but I don't think it's going to. And the weird thing is, this is the one that's written and directed by Simon Barrett, who works with Adam Wingard all the time, and I love so many things that they've worked on together, like You're Next and The Guest and earlier stuff in the VHS franchise. So I usually like everything from them. So it's always been weird that I never can get into this one. Yeah, I'm sorry, this one's just boring as shit. This does nothing for me, this segment. We have this girl, Haley, she's working at a funeral home, and there's this nighttime wake for this guy, Andrew, who killed himself. And they both leave her there alone. Like, the owner and the helper, Tim, I think his name is, whatever, and leave this girl alone. So she's just sitting here reading in this funeral home with this coffin, and then she starts hearing noises. Then this strange guy comes and says he's a relative of this guy, Andrew. But he kneels down and, pays his respects to Andrew, but he says something in some other language, and they're implying it's like a spell or something. There's just a lot of her talking on the phone. She's talking to a friend of hers for a bit and saying how scared she is. And then she calls Tim and she's talking to him and saying, I'm hearing weird noises. And him saying it's just gases from the body. It goes on for way too long. Just for the guy to come to life, and he was decapitated though, so his head's off. And she fucks around with his head a bit, and then she ends up getting possessed by him, and that's how it ends. I mean, it's not good. It's not for me. It's very, very slow, very uneventful, and very predictable. Oh, and for some reason, there's a storm going on all night, and at the end, there's a fucking tornado that comes out of nowhere. So yeah, I didn't have anything really to say on that one. Back to the wraparound. Again, nothing happens here. Except for they realize they're fucked. This SWAT team. They end up still exploring this warehouse. They find, just entrails and body parts on the ground and, upside down crucifixes. They find some mannequins. We just talked about a killer mannequin, so that's weird. So they're about to leave. The SWAT team. They're about to abort mission, get the hell out of here, and they end up seeing a TV screen flickering static, and a voice comes on like an intercom or something and starts spewing all regular cult shit, which leads us into the third segment, which is the one that's all in Indonesian, right? This one I remember actually being pretty good because it's pretty out there. The guy has fucking spider legs. And this guy's working on people like they're freaking human guinea pigs. Yeah, the segment actually opens up with the spider body guy. It looks a little hokey. It's believable though. I believe it for this segment. It looks fine. But you see this guy with just a head, and then the rest of him is just a mechanical spider body. And this doctor, this crazy surgeon, whatever he is, wants to make a hybrid of human beings and machine. And he has this woman, and he starts giving her a lobotomy, and he has this other guy, and it seems like he's been trying this for a while because he names them test subject 98 and 97. So has he done this close to 100 times? And gotten away with it for this long? Because that's impressive. I mean, it's sick, but you gotta give credit where credit is due. That's pretty impressive to not get caught after kidnapping and treating almost 100 people like human guinea pigs and not getting caught. Gotta give it to him. And she turns into a full-on robot, like an android. And she has mechanical eyes and stuff. And pretty much we start seeing everything through her point of view, through the android's fake eye vision, if you will. I like how he's just casually just sawing off a random arm and somebody's head, and the effects look alright. They don't look great. The face melt, like I said in the Ratman segment, that looks really, really good. This is a decent step down, but it doesn't look bad in any way. Yeah, so as this is going on, I don't remember where this goes. He ends up seeing on the TV a police report, a news report, that the police suspect him of all these missing people. And they specifically refer to the girl here, which SA is what he calls her, that's turned into an android. And she sees this and she's kind of freaking out because she can kind of make noises. This is a good segment. I forgot completely where this went. So the cops end up showing up at this crazy guy's laboratory, and he says, like, what is this? You're going to arrest me? And they said, we're not here to arrest you. And they just gun this guy down. And the lead guy says, our job here is to rescue the survivors. Like, not to, care for a killer and forgive him. Which, damn right. So then they see S.A., the cyborg girl. And we don't see what she looks like yet. And they're looking at her like she's an abomination. The lead guy wants to just put her out of her misery and kill her. And then this guy's like backup plan kicks in. And they trigger an explosion. And then you hear this crazy scientist or doctor. They never say what he is exactly. Is he a doctor? Is he a crazy scientist? Is he just a fucking nutty Indonesian? I don't know. If they say it, I missed it. But I guess his voice in that recording triggers his crazy abominations to kill everybody there. And they start slaughtering everybody. Really cool design with the guy at the very beginning that he had. Now he's like a full robot with like big like swords or blades for arms. He's slicing and dicing motherfuckers up left and right. It's great. Okay, I remember this. She goes into this office, the cyborg, and she sees her head, like her human head, in a jar of formaldehyde, which would freak anybody out. Are you kidding me? Then she sees the mirror, and she goes and sees what she looks like, and freaks out, like just breaks down. And cool design, but for some reason, when you first see her, like, actual look, when she's, like, coming out of the shadow, I thought of Admiral, what the hell's his name, from Star Wars. This guy. Kinda looks like her here. Is it just me? But I thought of him immediately, and I busted out laughing, so it kind of ruined the suspense a bit. She has a cannon for an arm, like she has no hand. She has one hand. The other one is just cut off here, and it's a fucking cannon. I wouldn't mind having that upgrade. She sees another test subject on the table, and that looks really good. All the effects on her, like, all different parts of her are opened up, and like you see like open wounds and blood, but then you see other parts of her body that's mechanical and made of machinery. All of that looks really good. This is great. She ends up shooting a whole bunch of more SWAT team or whatever they are, police that end up coming, and then she blows one of their heads off, and it looks glorious. It looks really good. And then she's like holding the body as a human shield, so it just lingers on his blown apart head as she's like walking with him. All of that is fantastic. Yeah, I love this segment. Better than Ratman. So I didn't expect this to go up at all. And I am so happy that I gave this movie another chance here. Great effects throughout. It just gets chaotic. And this one dude who, good way of using the found footage here, because we switch back and forth between S.A.'s, cyborg vision, and this guy Jono. He's like, he doesn't want to be there and doing this, and they end up teaming up at the end here to try to get out of here alive, and his camera feed. So it's an interesting way that they did that, and it actually works very well. So you switch back and forth between this, like his cam and her little cyborg vision. Good job on that. And then her battery starts dying and he ends up getting his arm ripped off by the other test subject, who's a full-on robot with the blade arms, and she ends up ripping out, like, I guess it's his brain, right, for this robot, and kills him. We think she's dead. Then they show surveillance footage at the end, and you see her still very much alive, walking out of there. Great segment. I really enjoyed that. I'm sorry, but this wraparound is so terrible. I don't know what they were thinking with this. It's just the SWAT team walking around the warehouse and finding a new screen of some sort to be presented the next segment. It just feels so lazy, man. Like, I really don't like this. It's making me angry every time it goes back to the wraparound. I just want to move on to the next segment. So I don't even know what happened. But they ended up watching something on a TV or a projector of some sort. I guarantee you that. And that brings us to the fourth segment that I don't remember at all, called Terror. Actually, you know why I don't remember the fourth and fifth one? I don't remember the fourth one because I just don't remember it. I don't remember the fifth one because there is no fifth one. I'm so used to them having 5 in most of these entries. I know, is it 2 that has 4? I think it's 2 that has 4. But most of them have 5, so I'm thinking this has 5. No. So this is the last segment, titled Terror. Alright, I'm remembering this. They tie in the wraparound with this last segment, right? Because we see the guy, Slater, one of the SWAT team members, in this last segment. And there's like this group of racist assholes, extremists, and they want to blow up some building, some government building, and they want to make America great again or something, I guess. And if I remember correctly, they have a vampire that they like worship or that they're using for something. I don't remember, but I remember they have a vampire. That's right. They have this guy who's a vampire, and they like are taking his blood and they're using it as an explosive, and they end up injecting his blood into this rabbit, this poor innocent rabbit, and they just leave the rabbit in a cage for the sun to come up. And since it's vampire blood, like when the sun comes up, this rabbit explodes. And it's hilarious. I mean, great idea. The rest of the segment's okay. We end up seeing the vampire basically just kill everybody. Now, the creature design, like, it's not your usual vampire. He has, like, kind of like Predator. Like these things that open, like with these teeth. It looks really cool. We get some cool gore effects. This guy gets his face eaten off, like ripped right off his face. That looks cool. And then he ends up killing himself, the vampire. He lets the sunlight in and the whole place gets destroyed. Oh, and we find out that Slater, the guy who's in the wraparound, one of the SWAT team people, he supplied the guns to this group of racist assholes who were going to blow up that building and have this vampire. So whatever. I mean, good last segment. Not great. I mean, seeing it again now makes sense that I forgot it completely, because it is pretty forgettable, despite the few good things there. Then we have the ending of the wraparound, which wraparounds in general in anthologies usually don't do anything for me unless they're really well written. Like what I would have done here, I'm not a fucking screenwriter, but what I would have done to tie everything together even more is have, instead of them just having this vampire, this like white supremacist group, I would have had them be the cult that worships the Ratman. So then it ties the wraparound together with this last segment and with the first segment with Ratman, so that their whole little white supremacist group at the end would be tied in with the cult that worships the Ratman. I think that would have been a much better decision. But that's just me. Oh yeah, then we find out, that's right, the 2 women's SWAT officers, they're in on all this. Like, they're part of a cult in this warehouse, and they have a fetish for snuff films and all these weird, messed up torture movies, and they end up torturing, killing Slater, and saying that this is their new movie. Like, this is their best video yet. Whatever. Like I said enough times, the wraparound does nothing. Overall, VHS 94 pretty much stayed exactly where it was before. Like above viral, which again, I gotta give that another watch, but I guarantee it ain't going up. And above 85, but below everything else. I mean, Ratman is great, and the third segment, the Indonesian one, which is no surprise as I enjoy a decent amount of Indonesian horror. So I'm glad that I rewatched at least that one and really, really enjoyed that. Besides those two, the other two are real forgettable for me, especially the coffin one. That's the worst one out of all of them, which again, very surprising, being as it's Simon Barrett, who I usually love everything he's involved in. But that's VHS 94. I don't know when I'm doing viral. I'm not looking forward to doing viral. And aren't we getting another one this year? Like another one in the 80s? I'm not looking forward to that either. Alright guys, hope everyone has a great night. I will talk to you soon. Take care everybody.